All right, we're gonna pick up in this video from where we left off in the previous video, which is still focusing on reading in data and exploring data frames as we get started with data in R. But the previous video focused on one way of doing this, and you'll hear us probably say time and time again that there are going to be lots of different ways to achieve the same outcome in R. And we are generally going to focus on one approach, but it is good to sort of know the breadth of some of the approaches, particularly when it comes to Googling or looking things up. It's good to sort of know, what sort of things to cue in on to know what language or approach in R you're really looking at. And one of these big distinctions that we'll make in this class is between base R, which is the approach that we just went through, and another version that is referred to as the tidyverse. And the tidyverse is an umbrella of packages that have been developed for R that are pretty well known for, first of all, having a lot of resources. So they're really well documented online and in the RStudio world. And in generally, they're thought to be more readable and a little more intuitive for early coders. So a lot of base R approaches can sometimes be hard to learn for early beginners, and we will sometimes toggle back and forth between these two, but feel free to probe us on what's base R, what's not, why are we using the tidyverse, these types of things. But for now, we're just going to jump into it. And so I said the tidyverse is a suite of packages, and we haven't really talked yet about what a package is in R. And we can talk about this more in class, but for more, it is a bundle of functions. So someone developed a package, this suite of functions for R that lets us achieve something particular. And the tidyverse is actually a whole suite of packages, so then even a larger suite of functions that are all trying to help us clean and organize and present our data in more user-friendly ways. But not most packages, really any packages, come pre-built into RStudio. So whenever we're working with a new package, we have to install it into our computer. And we only have to do this once, but it can sometimes hang you up if you're trying to work, you see a function online and you copy someone's code, but it doesn't run on your computer. One of the first things to ask yourself is, have you actually installed the package that this function is based on? So to install packages, we will rely on the function install package, which we can start here. It's actually install packages plural. And whenever we're installing packages, we will also use quotation marks inside our parentheses. And inside the quotation marks, we can write the name of the package. There's no really autocomplete here, so you need to know the name. These are often, you can look them up or Google them and paste this in there. But we're going to execute this install packages for the tidyverse. And you'll see in our console, it gives you a little bit of output. It went and grabbed it from the internet. And now it looks like they've downloaded the binary of packages in our downloaded packages, and we're good to go. You might have already had this installed, but if not, now it's definitely on your computer. And oftentimes, so the good news is this only has to be done once. We don't have to reinstall the tidyverse every time we open up an R script. So sometimes you'll see folks putting a hashtag in front of install packages to sort of delete this from their code in a sense, but still let a reader know that it is necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can delete it from your code. Sometimes people will install packages only from within the console, so you don't save that text. But in addition, while you only have to install the package once, it is important that you need to load a package into your active package library every time you start a new R session. So even though I've installed the tidyverse, I have not yet loaded it into this session. And to load a package into a session, which you have to do this each time, we are going to use the function library. So we're going to go look into our package library, and we are going to ask it to pull out and activate the tidyverse. And so now we no longer need quotation marks because the tidyverse exists in RStudio. It knows it's a package, it knows to look for it, and it actually gives me all of the packages that start with tidy, which are all now a part of this tidyverse suite. So we're going to go ahead and say library parentheses tidyverse and get that loaded in. And whenever you load in a new package, in this case, it will tell you because this is an umbrella of many packages, it tells you all of the packages that are included. So this is ggplot2, tibble, tidyr, reader, per, dplyr, stringer, and forcats, which we'll get into. We'll work through most of these throughout the remainder of the course. And it also lets us know where there are some conflicts in functions, which we will dive into later and can sometimes be one of the reasons your code bugs and can be hard to troubleshoot as an issue. But we've now installed tidyverse, we've loaded it into our library, and now what can it do? So the big difference between, or the big role of the tidyverse compared to baseR is that it likes working in a thing called a tibble rather than a data frame. So let's check out what that means. We previously have, because I didn't close my session from the previous video, I have surveys as a data frame already read in from our data. But what we're going to do is we're going to read it in again as a tibble and give it a different object name so that we don't overwrite our existing surveys data frame. That way we can sort of toggle back and forth and compare them. So surveys, this is, what do we want to call our new surveys? Let's call it surveys_t, because this will be our surveys tibble. We'll use our assignment arrow, and we are now going to use the function that is specific to it's actually the reader package, and we can see this by seeing what auto populates in R. We're going for this read_CSV function. So if you remember previously, we did read.csv, which was in base R, but now read_CSV is active in this reader package, which we saw was one of the packages that was attached in the tidyverse. So read_CSV. Then if you remember, when we're reading in files, we need to get the file path right, and it's going to be the same file path as before, data / portal_data_joined.csv, and we're going to execute this. Let's see, what does it want to know? I got a conflict. It gave me a notice in the console. It wasn't quite a red error, and I am wondering if there was anything wrong with it, but I think we're all good. And so now we have this thing called a tibble. What does that really mean? Let's check it out. So we can explore our object first, just in the ways that I reviewed in the last video. So we can just enter it into our console and see what spits out. And you might automatically recognize some differences compared to what happened when we looked at our survey. So let's see. This is a tibble, which is our surveys_t. And this is a data frame, which is just our surveys. And we can inspect the same previous surveys object and see, let's see, what's different here. Our data frame, we can look in our console and see that our data frame spit out not a super readable number of observations. It gave us the first 76 rows, whereas the tibble gave us the first 10. Our tibble in gray here also seems to indicate something underneath our column names, which because I'm familiar with this, I can go ahead and say that these are the data types. So these are doubles, characters, doubles, and characters. So previously we saw that most of our strings, or rather, sorry, our columns or vectors that were numbers, they were called integers in the data frame, but we'll see here that a tibble calls them doubles. And we can break that down a little bit more later, but this is really how tibbles refer to numbers or something that's numeric. But we still have, so we have doubles and characters. You'll see that whereas in the data frame, there just seem to be blanks where there are no observations. In a tibble, the read_CSV autofills these with nice red NAs. So this is good, or could be good, depending on your preference. And we can just kind of run through some of the same inspections that we did before, just to kind of get ourselves familiar with what this now surveys_t object is. And whereas previously the class of surveys alone was just a data frame, this is now a data frame, a tibble data frame, and maybe a specific table data frame. Unclear actually, but it's a lot more than a data frame now. It can potentially be, you know, more interesting or manipulated differently is sort of our point. One way is that subsetting. So yeah, what are the differences between these two? That subsetting is a little different. So for instance, when it was just the surveys object and we looked at, say, the first column, so remember row, comma, column. So if nothing, comma 1 is the first column, and this gives us a vector. You can also annotate in the same line as code. So that's also a nice feature. Whereas surveys underscore T, if we subset in the exact same way, so nothing, comma 1 inside our brackets, you'll see that it gives us still a tibble. It's a lot cleaner. It lets us look at the first 10 observations. So it gives us a tibble. And that's sort of it for what we're going to cover here. This is a quick comparison of loading in a data frame or a tibble, and a tibble is really just an extra fancy data frame. And we're sort of laying the foundation for understanding and getting to know the tidyverse, which will be our home base for the rest of the class. So I'll see you guys in class.